Good afternoon, and we forgot our mics again.
Oh my god.
Anyway, it's all right. JoJo is gonna do some don't even try. It's okay. We're good. We're good. It's the New Jersey stat report.
Yes.
And what an interesting stat report this is. This is nutty. It's a tale of two cities, two towns, two areas. Because we have some numbers to go over and they're quite eye-opening. Wait till you hear these numbers because they are eye-opening for New Jersey. And the heat's still on over there in some places, I can tell you that. But I mean, there are some signs in there that things are cooling off a little bit, and we'll get into that. But anyway,
Yes.
our lovely PR person, director here is celebrating, well, we didn't have an official celebration, the Albanian Independence Day. So she did this Albanian dance in the room for Independence Day. She put that on earlier, that'll be on TikTok. So anyway, happy Independence Day.
Yes, happy Independence
And we
Day.
know that, I'm gonna put that in the right direction. We have a large Albanian population in Staten Island, very large.
Yes.
It's a continually growing nationality in the borough of Staten Island. So it's always nice. They're even working in
Jersey.
what? And New Jersey,
Yeah,
yes.
New Jersey.
And they're hardworking people, very hardworking people for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But only on 4 days a week. Okay. As a joke, inside a joke. Anyway, but
Oh. No, nothing.
what?
The chair.
Oh yeah, we're just hitting all chords today. Or we just fall off the chair soon. Anyway, let's get into over here. We're here for the stats, and we have a whole bunch of things. How are you, Keri? You do a lot of shopping.
Cyber Monday shopping, yes.
Cyber Monday shopping.
Yeah, I didn't go to the mall.
So, yeah, a lot of people avoid the mall this year, and that's really going to be the tail. I think going to the next quarter, we're going to see how retail sales do, because I think that's going to be where we're going with this kind of market and the craziness that's ensuing everywhere about it. And you just did the stats, and it was interesting.
Yeah, just before.
Eye-opening with inventory numbers. It's just
Yeah.
crazy, but it's just so strange. It really is a strange time. So let's get into it, Keri. What do we got going on in Monmouth and Ocean counties that we're going to discuss?
So I wanted to point out, one of the things that stood out to me,
Sure.
out of all this data, the sold listings are down 13.50% year over year.
Yeah. So closed sales are down. Again, one of the interesting things, and you'll get into this report at some point later, New Jersey houses. So I don't think people want to correlate the fact that sales are down. But I'm going to caution some things here, because we call it market momentum, and this is a serious, now I'm starting to get a little bit concerned about market momentum, meaning how much we're not losing price, so we're going to get into that in a second, but the market momentum is something, and I always said this, that's the same thing with stocks and a whole bunch of things. It's the real estate kind of works the same way. So we pay attention to momentum, how even if things are volatile, there'll be momentum as far as the volume of sales or the volume of trades or whatever it may be. So these are the things that I tend to look at and say, okay, do we have something more going on here? And I think that even though there are less sales, 13%, which is notable, year over year, and that continues a trend, to be honest with you. But the one thing that's not trending downward is actually home sale prices, and we're still on the uptick in New Jersey by a substantial amount. and you're gonna get to that number. That number, so home sales are up, sales are down. So like the volume of sales are down, and prices are still on the incline in New Jersey. It's not the case here locally. So we did our last report. They basically, Staten Island's kind of flattened out. So it's not like we're not seeing any jump. I think it was down 1% year over year. So I think it was about around 1%, negligible. So it's not even like what I would say it's in a margin of error to say it's basically flat. Although pending sales, and I do think going into the next quarter next year, there's some things that indicate that things are going to be a little bit more challenging with the 8% interest rate that's kind of settled into the market now. I mean, it's fully settled into the market now. And I think it's, it's not giving buyers a whole bunch of choice in like what they're finding out there, because homeowners just are not moving. And we talked about Airbnb, and we talked, that was like last Friday's thing. There's just a lot of things happening at once. But let's get to the next thing that I think you're gonna get into is actually, right, the months of inventory.
Yes, I do have that. The month's inventory is actually up 5.26% month over month.
Right.
Yeah, so it's at 2.2. Last month it was at 2.9.
Okay. By traditional standards, anything under 6 months is considered seller's market in normal times. And we may be setting a new benchmark, a new normal, because it's like, I haven't seen these numbers. I mean, at one time, I don't even think when the market was really steaming, it was like almost slightly over a month of inventory. That's how fast things were coming on and going off. It's upticked. So this is what we call the leading indicators, and the leading indicators suggesting that it's taking a little bit longer now, not much longer, but it's 5% increase month over month. Negligible at two months. I would not, there's no alarm there. Where we may see things kind of like switch and change is maybe that Airbnb situation we were talking about, closer to some of the shore locations. We're monitoring that moving forward, because I think people have to really watch what this could be, because there's a lot of condo developments, and the prices kind of went up kind of quickly. I would venture to say that there's probably a good deal of Airbnbs, probably like in the Long Branch area, maybe some of the more shore areas where people would tend to rent out short term for the summer or for the summer months. So Airbnb is kind of big there. And if you haven't seen anything with Airbnb, there are some real things happening there. With inflation, disposable incomes are down, and there's some significant softening in Airbnbs. And this is going to be the thing. Sellers need to be cautious, because it's like, this is not a time to play around. Like, if you're going to sell, don't assume that because there's low inventory that there isn't some precipice for something that could happen based on this Airbnb situation. Now, I'm going to say this off the, it could be basically a more localized in terms of like if there's any downturn or uptick in inventory, it's going to be Airbnb playing. There's definitely going to be an Airbnb situation developing some places around the country. It already started. There's people hanging on to them. When the market was hot during COVID, a lot of people wanted to make quick income, and it's one of those things I hate. This is what I hate, when fundamentals go awry. And we did a soundbite of the last one. You gotta look at this stuff, and it's like, the idea when things are easy and easy money's floating, you get people on. It's like, I call it the YouTube effect, and I talked about it before. Like, people just do wild stuff thinking that money could just make money, and that's not always the case. And this is something that is brewing, and I would urge you're selling, there probably is not a better time if you're going to do something, because I do think, like, so the people, watch out for those Christmas, they haven't flown off the Christmas balls haven't flown off the tree yet. That's going to happen in one of these lives, I know for a fact. But we got to watch this. This is like, and while things look great on paper right this minute, I do think that in the coming months, this 8% stuff is really, it's having its effect. There's no doubt about it. And I think people need to really be cautious about like where they're going to tread in this. So, you know, let's focus on, the best thing I can tell you is you better trust the people you're working with, because I do think at the end of the day, this is going to be a little slippery slope to navigate as far as like how volatile prices can be in these low inventory markets. And I will tell you this, rumor has it, and a lot of people kind of talking about it, that rate cuts are going to start coming into the first quarter of next year. So the Fed is already, the banking situation is not great. And the bank is holding some pretty not so good stuff on the books, especially with bond yields being what they are. It's an inverted curve. There's problems there. And I don't think, in general, that the banks are going to be able to withstand some of the stuff that's coming down the pike. We have some headwinds blowing, and I think we're going to see some changes with the way the market's going to respond. And what I think is that they're not going to curb inflation the way most people want it to be curbed. That's going to be the problem moving forward, because I do think that the Fed is almost backed up against the wall. I'm not saying I'm an economist, but you know, you read the tea leaves and it's like there's too many other outlying factors. It's not the, you know, they try to use the Volcker effect. It's not that. But I'm just drifting right now. So let's get to the next thing so keep this moving.
The average days on market.
The average days on market. The increase, obviously, having to do with interest rates. It's going to be it's going to slow. There's no doubt about it. And that's going, the next report's going to be a little longer. Report after that's going to be longer. There is just, you're talking about maybe if the market is this big of potential buyers, there's only about this much that could afford the prices where they're at. So you have to consider that. You have to consider it as a factor. It's not that it's not happening, because there is that few houses on the market that, you know, maintaining a price is still there. In most markets, I'm going to say this, we're kind of dealing with a big sample size when we talk about Monmouth and Ocean, because it can be, as you go further south, I could guarantee you this, the numbers in the Ocean County area are not the numbers in the Monmouth area. No doubt about it. I've done some numbers like independently. So when we're talking about the broader scope, so we're actually, you know, we're going pretty far north, pretty close to Staten Island now, and going southbound. As you start heading down the turnpike and start getting like past like the exit 98, things start changing. Freehold, Belmar, like south, people, Belmar. Don't you miss that place? But it's going to be an interesting time, folks. Let's call for what it is.
I wanted to ask you, what do you think is causing the decrease in months inventory and active listings year over year? Because they are both down year over year.
And this has been a persistent thing with, you know, we do the months, so we do the year over year based on the months. People are in low interest loans and have had no real thirst for moving to change to a rate that's in the 8% range. So like, it's not where, you know, so like, it's like you're gonna move up to an 8% rate. I mean, that's where people are stuck. The interesting thing is that's why, and this is why the Fed is going to pivot, because the banks now are holding loans at 3%. And I was watching something about how the banks, like, they're holding mortgages at 3.5%, 4%, and the yields on 10-year treasuries at 5%, so they're actually losing money on the mortgages that they have.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're losing money on mortgages.
That's interesting.
So because the yield that they put their deposits into treasuries, they're making 5%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at one time it was like close to 5 and then 4.5, but you start going below like 3. Geez, there's people in the 2s. There are people at the 2.8, 2.9. It went down that low.
Wow.
Yeah, the refinance at 2.9, and the bank is holding the mortgage on the books. And you have 5% interest rate on treasury notes, which is what the bank uses as reserves. It's like they're losing money. It's not so the mortgage. Just picture, and this is why it's such a strange market, folks. And it's like paying attention to this is kind of like important, because this is why I do think the rates are going to come down, because there's too much. This is not 1970 inflation, because there are so many other moving parts involved, and these idiots don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. I said this before. This is a problem when you have bureaucrats running stuff, and you look at everything and they pick up and say, "Oh, history says do this." You've added so many diversification of products financially that all based on debt, and it's like we're talking about a whole paradigm shift in how policy needs to be crafted here, and I think that's what's showing up in these reports, because these are not fundamentally sound. Let's call it, I'm going to say it outright. What we're talking about here when we do these stats all the time is that this is not what you're seeing here from a policy and economic standpoint would probably give most traditional economists like night sweats. Because I'm telling you, this would not make sense under any circumstance. You would never see a rising market in prices and lowering inventory. It's never happened. It's never happened, folks. It's never, ever, ever happened. Where you saw rising prices and volumes decreasing. They've always been correlated on the upside together. This isn't, and that's the part that becomes so where is this sitting? And it doesn't sit well with people who understand the economics of these things. I've been doing these reports for I think it's 14 years.
Wow.
13 years, yeah, it's a long time. And this is just wild. It's just really hard to explain a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So the month's inventory and the, you were saying, just to highlight.
Month's inventory and active listings.
Yes, continue on the decline.
Yeah.
It's just, and this is, they continue on the decline, but rates are they're gonna decrease rates. Don't let them kid you. And funny thing is, before anybody said it, we said it here on live, I think I was on with Joe, and I said, mark my words, back in August, that they're not going, after the last increase, they're not gonna do it again. And now, that's what they're talking about. That's because I knew that if they kept pushing, they're gonna bust this thing wide open. Because I'm telling you now, they do not, these rates are not going up. They will create, there's such a precarious situation with the banks right now. They're just little push, and it's gonna crack the whole time. They're not gonna have deposits on the books. And I think that's where they're gonna go. I'm not gonna I don't think masking this over for people is going to be the thing that helps them make decisions. But to me, it's what's going to happen though, if you're a seller, you're going to get those bumping rates downward, and you're going to get the market's going to heat up again. I could almost guarantee by March of this year, once they start saying, well, we've gotten inflation under control, they're gonna, because the banks are banging on the door of the Fed right now. They're banging. I mean, you're gonna say real estate people are banging. Everybody's banging because we've become so debt ridden. There's no other. And this is where the Fed can't walk back on, and it's the way it's gonna be. So it can be managed short term. I think it's like when they said that inflation was transitory. And didn't do anything when the time was actually good, and they knee-jerked. We talked about knee-jerks. Knee-jerk it back again, and it's it's not transitory anymore. And then it's oh, well. By the time they get the inflation, and this is the problem, guys, this makes me nuts. By the time they get these reports and then they make adjustments to say no, they'll usually do more damage than they'll do good. And this is a problem. They'll do more damage than they'll do good, because usually they'll say, oh, well, these are people who said inflation was transitory. Now they're saying inflation's out of control and we need to raise rate. What are you doing? And this is this is what I call bureaucratic, the bureaucracy operating from the ivory tower. They're not reading the tea leaves that there's some things happening out there, and it's not, they're gonna be forced to lower rates sooner than later. And I think that's why you're seeing Wall Street. So all the people watching Wall Street and you're saying, oh, stocks are going up. They're already, just so you know, the smart people out there, they already know. They're banking on that happening. What you're seeing in the markets now are people banking on the Fed's cutting rates. They're just getting ahead of the storm. Because what's going to happen again, as soon as you get the announcement they've cut rates, and you say, oh, invest, I said the markets are still going up. And it's like, there's definitely some correlations here with the idea or some knowledge that this is the end of rate hikes, and actually we'll be looking to decelerate things. Anyway, that's my manifesto for the afternoon. On to the next thing.
Now, what factors do you think are contributing to the increase in the average and median sale price for Monmouth and Ocean?
This is, again, we don't really have to go much further. Prices are up 10%.
Yes.
Median sold price year over year. Now, I would venture to say if you're going further north in Monmouth to further south in Ocean, it's going to look like this. So I would assume that prices again apply somewhere around 15% in Monmouth County, then sliding maybe 1 or 2%. Some places may actually start getting a little bit negative on the southern side of Ocean County. So I do believe that people are froze. There's no choice. So you either pay the price or there's no other option. And you may not think it's worth it. Enough people there's going to be I don't care what this market is. There's always going to be a buyer and there's always going to be a seller. And it's just going to come down to supply and demand. And as that supply continues to fall, the price pressure is going to remain high. And I do think that people now, I don't think they're going to stay way on the sideline. The only pivotal factor being here on prices is it's what the snapback is on these Airbnb situation. I said that's the big question mark for the year. Airbnb is now what happens with all these houses is really the question. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think if we get the snapback in rates sooner, like in March, things are just going to accelerate again. And I do believe there's enough ringing in people's ear right now that I don't think they're in a situation that they're going to keep rates. They may even do it sooner, maybe as soon as January. I wouldn't be shocked if January rates come down in the next, because they're going to say, well, after looking at it, we're seeing a continuing trend. I could almost say exactly what they're going to say. We're going to see a continuing trend downward. So in order to stay ahead of it, we're going to start lowering rates because we see that it's done its effect. Whether it does or not is all. The question is if people can believe that. But I do think that the only thing that's going to keep prices from down, if there's any real downward pressure now, the only piece of hope for buyers that are looking for houses in the parts of Monmouth and Ocean County is going to be where the Airbnb situation sells out, because I don't believe rates are staying at this level, and as soon as they tick this way backwards, it's going to be, there's a lot of pent up demand. They're just waiting for rates to fall. A lot of pent up demand. As soon as that rate, and I've seen it last year. Last year in a very similar situation, rates went up I believe they shot up to about 7.25 for a period of time, and as soon as January snapped in, rates went down to 6, under 6. It was 5.99 at one point. The market just went, and you're seeing a lot of the rise here in prices and everything else because of that last year's really like low interest rate environment that headed into December, headed into January, excuse me, and then it really took off. I mean, the rates really took off. I mean, the sales really took off, and like because we were doing reports last year in February, and if you guys have watched this before, February prices were down in New Jersey almost 4%. So when we get to February's numbers, whatever the 8% are going to be doing will not show up until the February report, same like this year. So whatever we're talking about now, this is not, so when I say that I want to caution this is a very important live that I think had to be kind of explained out. Because people are going to say prices went up 10%. That's yesterday's news. That has already happened. I don't think what you're going to see in the next 3 months is what you're going to see. So I'm going to tell you, February's report is going to come in much softer, much more, you're going to see things change. There's no doubt about it. I'm doing this for a long time. So people who are out there and think like, oh, it's like, let's go boost up. This is a report that happened. This is like looking at a star. The star burnt out 10 years ago, 10,000 years ago. The light hasn't traveled to Earth yet. So it's that same thing. You're looking, so when we give you a number, this is stuff that's happened, what's happening forward. And one of the things you touched on was the month's inventory number creeping up 5%, almost 5%.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the beginning. So let's focus on the next thing. There's a lot to absorb because I think people are feeling a little like where things are going and they want to really know. That's why I'm kind of being a little bit more elaborate today on these stats because I think this stuff is really a lot of myth and rumor out there.
Yes.
Sorry, Keri.
No. She
doesn't have to stay behind that boring computer all day.
No, I love the computer.
Right. Better than standing here and listen to me whine. Anyway. So Monmouth and Ocean County, folks, this is the numbers. We're continuing on that path. So the people who are just joining, we're doing Monmouth and Ocean County real estate stats.
I want to bring up the sale to list price ratio. That's down 0.50% month over month.
0.5%. That is negligible. So it's still at what? 100%?
100.6.
100.6.
Yeah.
So people are they're selling it just about list price of the things that are selling. But the one thing that doesn't tell you is price adjustments. We don't have that in the stats, but price adjustments have really accelerated, even in the strongest parts of that market of Monmouth County. So there's a lot of people, you love that.
I keep bumping into it.
I'm going to tie your hands in front of you for every live. She's the most fidgety person you sit next to.
I am.
You like to move.
I need to be like playing with something.
Oh, you get those squishy balls.
Oh, the dumplings?
The dumplings. We're going to have to give her one of those for the next live. Sorry, man. It's okay. It's not here. They're not here.
It's alright.
Oh, she's going to...
Go
ahead.
Yes.
So, that's going to be for Keri's hand. Remember when she first started, she always used to do when she did the stat report, she always used to do the fingers. Today's stat... Happy hands.
Jazz hands.
Jazz hands.
Yeah.
That's Keri's legendary move.
But so the big thing is, and we have to have fun, because we don't want to cry. Joking. Anyway, let's get on to the
I don't know, these numbers are making me cry.
Yeah.
JoJo, she's always got to start. She's got to get herself in here. You ever sit in the front like the little like the little kid that has to like you know how you always see those shows where like the kid like they'll be talking. I was watching a news program where the son during COVID the son walks in and starts like dancing. He was on TV. He was on TV doing like a report and the daughter and then the nanny comes in.
I've seen that. Yes. Yeah.
That's JoJo. Be like, we have to call a nanny to carry her out. But the big thing is that all of the questions? If you want to, don't we have to sum this up somehow?
Yeah, we have to sum this up.
Sum this up. I mean, because, you know, I think this is, you know, it's wild. It's just, to report on these things, again, to highlight what we have going on here, just to kind of like people who are just joining, what we're basically saying is right now, home prices they've gone up 10% in Monmouth and Ocean County. I want to say this, but I would not say both counties experiencing a 10% increase. That is not the case. Like I said, it's probably like a sliding, like it would be sliding from maybe up to 15% all the way down to maybe 2%. So maybe negative in some parts of the Ocean County area, that maybe it's turned over a little bit. So I want to, make sure we're clear about that. The other thing is the volume of sales is continuous decline, and so is the amount of new homes coming on the market. Until those rates start changing, I don't think the situation changes. And if you're kind of waiting for that change, I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. And the difference, you know, people believe that there's I'm going to tell you something, folks. The crash idea that people say, oh, housing's going to crash, they figured out after, there was no such thing as quantitative easing. And all the people who are out there saying, like, oh, the market's going to crash, oh, it's going to do this. I mean, it would have to be a substantial structural failure that there wouldn't be a bailout involved. So so people who are waiting for this crash nonsense, they figured out a way after 2006 and 2008. The system will not allow it anymore. And this is why we have the issues that we have. There's not going to be a crash. And I think there may be some markets experience a downturn based on the Airbnb situation. So some things will pop in certain areas, but you're not going to see, and certain places where fundamentals may not be as strong. Here, trying to reconnect. There we go.
Okay.
We're back on.
Yes.
So I want to caution people with that and say that, I don't think, and once they cut those rates, just like last year, and I think it's going to happen this year, as soon as they cut it, it's off the races again for houses, because, and like I said, there'll be some areas that suffer a little bit more from Airbnb if those rates don't decrease. But the banks, they're going to be in a precarious situation now, and the Fed knows it. Don't let them kid you. They know it. But the banks cannot hold out on these rates staying like this. They can't. It's not going to work without causing substantial damage to the economy as a general. And they know that the structural failures involved with keeping rates this high. There's too many assets on the bank's books right now that are only earning 2%, and the market's at 5.5. You can't pay out interest on this is the problem. So like you said, CDs. I put my money in a CD.
Yeah.
I get 5% interest, but the stuff that they have as instruments of products on the books for a bank. So in other words, what a bank does is they lend money. So, and they're in securities and they're in other things, but you got to realize you can't have a bank pay out 5% interest, right, on a loan, and then have mortgages collecting 2 and 3% interest. You have more outflow, so the banks they're not.
Yeah.
So if I got to pay you 5%, I'm the bank. I got to pay you 5%. But the money that people put deposited into the bank, I'm only making 2, 3, 4% tops. I'm losing 1% on everything that I hold as an investment.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think that goes? Like, it doesn't. So from a fundamental practice, they know it. Don't let them kid you. They know it. They can't. They're not going to be able to keep this like high interest rate environment for long without causing some pretty good damage. And I think they're holding on and they're holding out, but they know it's not going to work. So you're going to see, and it's like I predicted the fact that they wouldn't raise rates again. I'm predicting the cut. Maybe March, it could be sooner. As soon as, you know, there was a bank test, they're doing a test on it, a stress test on the banks. They're gonna complete that soon. You'll never know about it. But they're gonna complete it soon to see how much reserve capital they currently have. Because fractional reserve lending, if you don't know what's happened, but they're really going to, and I think, you know, they have to watch, because if they let this continue and it cracks, that will not be a good situation. That will not be a good situation at all. And that's going to require like substantial printing of money. Like, so if you think inflation could get out of control, if the system breaks now, the types of bailouts we'll talk about is going to be you're going to see, and that's, I hate to say this, that's where like a lot of governments kind of like get it wrong. It's like they think that they're going to do something and they're usually late to react. They're probably not late yet, but it can be late. Anyway, that's not the problem. The thing is where we are with the markets. If you're selling, guys, I still think you should be doing things based on cost and stop playing into the narrative. It's not a good time for this, it's not a good time for that. Mm-hmm. You have to understand what the costs are associated with doing what you're doing. And there will be some people who score very, very good deals in this market. So if you're in the New Jersey market, you move into Florida, some markets have softened up substantially. So you could really, where markets, so you're going to see pockets, and some people, like if you're in Tampa, Tampa has a high Airbnb situation. Selling and moving to Tampa right now, you're in a good position. Because inventory rates are coming up there because so much of the population is on Airbnbs. And you'll be able to negotiate a better deal in most cases, unless they're in short sale, which you're going to see more of, and that may happen. You're going to see people, Jesus, what was that? Is it knuckles?
Oh, I thought she cracked her knuckles also.
Anyway.
Wow.
Let's see what goes on from here. But again, that's where we have our report. So everything about this looks fine. So at the surface, it looks all good. I think rates will come down in maybe January, March. I predict they'll be official, but it could be as soon as January, depending on how things go. I think what's going to happen is they're going to see the market will respond to what happens with holiday sales. That's the key. So whatever the Fed's going to do, they're going to look at holiday sales as the barometer for what they do. And I'm going to tell you right now, they're likely to come in softer than all the pundits say that, oh, people are spending money like crazy. I don't see it. Sorry. I don't think so.
No.
I think that's a big fallacy. I think what you're going to see is people pull back on their spending. It's going to come out in the, they're not going to put it out there that people are reducing spending. They want you to feel pretty good about spending. That's the whole point of the media.
Yeah.
If it fits the narrative of what the big companies want you to believe, it's like, yeah, it's fine. Baloney. I'm going to call it right like it is. People are going to pull back on spending, and they're going to see it in these reports. Markets will come down, interest rates will come down in the first quarter of the year, and prices of houses will not come down because it's a lagging. That markets in real estate lag the traditional markets, and they're going to be bringing down rates. I would suspect by the time we get into next summer, June, July, that rates could be into the 5.5s. I really believe that. So, it's still higher than normal, but 5.5's probably likely a good scenario. I would say that's where rates are going to go because they have no choice. They're going to be put up against the wall, and you know, it's either they lower rates or provide money for a bailout. So which one you want? Those banks are not gonna, they're not gonna take it. They're not. I'm telling you, they're gonna be like, you gotta have the lower rates, because it's like, and if you don't wanna do that, well, you know, it just, and I hate to say this, the Fed is hostage to the banks. They are absolutely, because that's the same thing. What happened in 2008, you know what they did? They went to Congress, said we have no money. Guess what happened? Everybody got a bailout. They said, you either do this, they went to Congress and they said, you either do this or this is the end. They went into Congress. There was a time, they literally said, if you don't give us money, the taxpayer money, to get us out of this situation, there won't be a person to get $1 out of an ATM machine in a week. And it was like this big thing. Oh, you should go back. There's a good Netflix here. It's not Netflix. Maybe it's on YouTube.
Okay.
It's a documentary on that whole event.
Okay.
The Age of Easy Money.
Age of Easy Money.
Yes, it's a great documentary on that particular thing. So if you happen to see it, and you're gonna know why markets don't collapse anymore. So the housing market, folks, if you waited for that, it's not gonna happen. How are they gonna allow that to happen? You think the banks that make they're not gonna let it happen?
No.
They figured a way out of it, and it's called quantitative easing. So as soon as those things go, Fed's gonna buy back bonds. They need to know when the tipping point is, and that's what they're trying to figure out now. It's like, are we close to the tipping point? They want you to believe that it's not, but you're gonna take that tree out.
I'm sorry.
I'm tired to death. For the next,
I'm trying.
if she gets duct taped like this, the next one, you know, don't call the authorities. I'm just trying to get her to sit in the chair. Anyway, that's where we're at. All right. Well, so that's the report for Monmouth and Ocean.
Yes.
Things are cheeky,
Cheeky.
rosy.
Okay.
So, but for sellers, think about costs, and there's some markets that actually make very good sense to move into because there's already softness appearing in several markets. And if you haven't done it, and like, you know, things start accelerating, you may get a bump here to say prices probably, I would say they're not, maybe won't go up, but they'll be, they're going to be pretty steady, and then they'll start, by the time we get into the spring and summer months, when they lower interest rates, again, it's going to be, the prices will accelerate. And that's what the Fed's scared of, and there's no getting around it. So that's where we have it. So don't expect any discounts on housing for any time soon, except in the markets where there's Airbnbs. That's the only thing that I'm going to say is, you know, those are small-time investors. They don't care about those people. Those are mom and pops. They can bankrupt them, it's all right.
Oh my God.
Anyway, just kidding.
Just kidding.
That's our report, and thank you, Keri, and thank you all. And again, happy Albanian Independence Day. I was gonna say Liberation Day.
Well, we were freed, so
You weren't free, really.
from the Ottoman,
Yeah,
so no more ruler.
and that's like,
Yeah, happy
Your favorite thing.
Albanian Independence Day, guys.
Happy Albanian Independence Day, guys.
all right. Have a great week.
Yes. Bye.